Hello, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin.
I noticed him on a Tuesday. I'd been taking the same train for 6 months, 7:23 a.m. from Riverside Station, 45 minutes straight through to downtown. Same seat every day, fourth car from the front, window side. I'm a creature of habit like that. My therapist says routine helps with my anxiety. He got on at Parkview, 3 stops after mine. The doors opened, people shuffled on, and he walked straight to the center of the car and stood there holding the pole. Nothing unusual about that. People stand in the aisle all the time during rush hour. What made me notice him was that he was staring directly at me. Not glancing, not accidentally making eye contact then looking away like normal people do. Full-on staring. His head turned in my direction, eyes locked on my face. I looked down at my phone, pretended to be absorbed in my email. Gave it a full minute before I glanced back up. He was still staring. I've lived in the city long enough to know you get weirdos on public transit. Guys who stare, guys who mutter to themselves, guys who try to start conversations nobody asked for. I'd learned to ignore them. Become invisible in my own little bubble. But this was different. This felt deliberate. He was maybe 50, maybe older, hard to tell. Average height, average build, short dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a gray suit that looked like it came from a department store in the 80s and a white shirt with no tie. Clean shaven, completely ordinary in every way except for the staring. I moved my bag onto my lap, creating a barrier, shifted my body toward the window. Every casual defense mechanism women learn for situations like this. He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept his eyes fixed on me for the entire 30 minutes until I got off at Central Station. I thought about it all day at work, told myself I was overreacting. It was rush hour. Maybe he'd zoned out. Maybe he had one of those 1,000-yard stares and wasn't actually focused on me at all. But Wednesday morning, he was there again. Same train, same stop, same gray suit, same position in the center of the car, hand on the pole, same stare. This time I counted. From the moment he got on at Parkview until I got off downtown, he stared at me for 32 minutes straight. I know because I timed it on my phone. 32 minutes without looking away once, without blinking that I could see. Thursday was the same. Friday. Monday. By the end of the second week, my routine had become consumed by him. I'd spend the first 3 stops on edge, dreading Parkview. Then the doors would open, and there he'd be, getting on like clockwork, walking to the center of the car, grabbing that pole and turning his head to stare at me. He never acknowledged anyone else, never looked at other passengers, never checked his phone, never read the advertisements above the windows. Just me, for 45 minutes, every single day. I started documenting it, taking photos when I could do it discreetly. In every shot, he's staring directly at the camera, never looking away. I showed the photos to my roommate, Sarah. "That's creepy as hell," she said. "Report him." To who? I thought. What would I even say? There's a man on my train who looks at me? That's not illegal. Uncomfortable, yes. Threatening, maybe, but not something the transit authority would do anything about. I tried different things. Changed where I sat. He'd adjust his position to maintain line of sight. Wore sunglasses and headphones, the universal "don't bother me" signal. Didn't matter. He'd still get on, still take up that position, still stare. What bothered me most was that he wore the exact same outfit every day. Same gray suit, same white shirt, same black shoes. No variation at all. I've worn the same jacket 2 days in a row and felt self-conscious about it. This man wore the identical outfit for 2 weeks straight like it was a uniform. On the 15th day, I'd had enough. I decided to get off early, break the pattern. When the train pulled into Maple Street, 2 stops before my usual, I stood up and walked to the doors. For the first time since this started, he moved. His head turned, following me as I walked past him. But he didn't get off, just watched me through the window as the train pulled away. I felt victorious for exactly 30 seconds. Then I looked down the platform toward the exit and saw him standing there at the far end, next to the stairs. Same gray suit, same white shirt, same expressionless face, watching me. My legs went weak. That's not a cliché. They literally felt like they couldn't hold me up properly. He'd been on the train. I'd just seen him through the window. There was no way he could have gotten off and made it down the platform before me, unless there were 2 of them. But I knew, somehow, that wasn't it. It was him, the same man, in the same clothes, standing in a place he couldn't possibly be. I walked toward the exit, because what else could I do? He didn't move as I approached, didn't react at all, just stood there at the top of the stairs, staring at me with that same unwavering focus. When I was maybe 10 feet away, an old woman with a grocery cart came up the stairs between us, blocking my view for just a second. He was gone when she passed. I ran the rest of the way home, didn't take the train the next day, called in sick to work, spent the whole day in my apartment with the deadbolt locked, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it or misunderstood what I'd seen. But I couldn't shake the image of him standing there at Maple Street when he should have still been on the train. That wrong, impossible placement. Sarah came home around 6. I told her everything, the weeks of staring, getting off early, seeing him on the platform. "We should call the police," she said. "And tell them what? That a man looked at me on the train?" She didn't have an answer for that. That weekend, I went through my albums, trying to distract myself. Old family pictures, stuff from when I was a kid. My mom had given me a box of photos from my grandmother's estate after she passed last year. I'd been meaning to organize them. I was looking through pictures from the 60s, my grandmother as a young woman, my mom as a baby, when I found one that made me stop breathing. It was a street scene, my grandmother standing at a bus stop, holding my infant mother, waiting with a few other people. The photo was dated 1965 on the back in my grandmother's handwriting. Standing behind her, slightly out of focus but clearly visible, was a man in a gray suit and white shirt. The same man. I looked at that photo for an hour straight, examining every detail. The face was identical. The suit was identical. Even his posture, the way he stood, the angle of his head, was exactly like how he stood on the train. My grandmother had been dead for over a year. This photo was taken 59 years ago. I started going through more photos, found him in 6 others, spanning from 1965 to 1983, always in the background, always at transit stations or bus stops, always in that same gray suit, always in the same position, staring at whichever woman in my family was in the foreground. My grandmother, my mother, my aunt. There was a photo from 1978, my mother pregnant with me, waiting at a train platform. He's visible at the edge of the frame, staring at her. I called my mom, asked her if she'd ever noticed someone following her, watching her on public transit. She got quiet for a long moment. "Why are you asking me that? Just answer the question." "There was a man," she said slowly, "when I was pregnant with you. He'd be on my train sometimes. He never did anything, just looked at me, made me uncomfortable. I changed my route and he stopped showing up." "What did he look like?" I asked. I don't really remember. It was so long ago. Middle-aged, I think. He wore a suit, gray maybe. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Mom, did grandmother ever mention someone like that? Another long pause. She did, actually. She used to tell me to be careful on the buses, said there was a man who used to watch her when she was young. She called him the staring man. I thought it was just one of her stories. I tried going back to my normal routine the next week, told myself I was being paranoid, connecting things that weren't connected, but I couldn't make myself get on the 7:23 train. I started taking the 6:45 instead, earlier, different time, different crowd. He was there on the first day, same position, same stare, like he'd been expecting the change. I got off at the first stop and took a cab to work. Cost me $30 I couldn't afford, but I couldn't stay on that train. The next day, I tried the 8:15. He was there. The day after that, I took a bus route I'd never used before, one that didn't even go near Riverside Station. When I got on, he was already sitting in the back row, staring at me. I went to the transit authority with the photos, showed them the pictures of him on the train, the old family photos, asked them to check their security footage. The supervisor looked through everything with increasing confusion. "Ma'am, I can see this man in your phone photos, but our cameras aren't showing anyone matching his description." She turned her computer screen toward me. Footage from Monday morning, my train car, the exact timestamp. I could see myself sitting by the window, could see the other passengers standing in the aisles. The space where he always stood was empty. "Our cameras don't show him," she said gently. "Are you sure he's actually there?" "I am sure. I see him every day. But apparently, I'm the only one who does. I don't take public transit anymore. I sold my car 2 years ago because parking downtown cost more than my transit pass, but I bought another one last week. Used, more money than I should have spent, but I couldn't keep taking trains or buses." I was a broke college student at the time, living off campus because it was cheaper, commuting into the city for classes and a part-time job. I cut things close more often than I should have, but I always made the last train. That night, I didn't. The doors closed right in front of me. I still remember the sound. Soft, automatic, final. No dramatic slam, just a clean seal and a low chime. The train rolled off like it didn't even notice I was there. I stood on the platform longer than I needed to, watching the red lights disappear down the tunnel. I checked my phone. 2:41 a.m. No more trains until morning. I already knew there wouldn't be buses running that late. I checked anyway. Nothing. Ride apps were useless too. My account balance was barely enough for groceries, let alone a long ride home. I sat down on one of the metal benches and tried to do the math in my head. How long until morning? Whether campus buildings would even be open? Whether security would let me sleep somewhere indoors? The station itself was still technically open but barely alive. The overhead lights buzzed softly. A cleaning crew had passed through earlier, leaving the floors spotless in that uncomfortable way public places get at night. I wasn't scared yet. Just annoyed, tired, embarrassed with myself. I remember thinking I'd just stay awake until sunrise. At some point, I walked over to the help desk. No one there. The glass window was dark, phone off the hook resting beside it like someone had left in a hurry hours ago. I went back to the bench. That was when I noticed how quiet it had become. Not silent, just empty. Even the distant sounds of the city felt far away, like the station was sealed off from everything else. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps. They weren't loud, just the soft, regular sound of shoes hitting concrete. I looked up. expecting to see a security guard or maybe another stranded passenger. The platform was empty. I stood up and leaned over the railing, checking the stairs. Nothing. The ticket gates were visible from where I was sitting, no movement there either. I told myself it was echo. Old stations carry sound weirdly, especially at night. I sat back down. The footsteps started again. This time, closer. Not rushing, not dragging, just someone walking with no real hurry. I pulled out my phone and opened the transit app, pretending to focus on it while listening. The steps stopped when I looked up. I laughed quietly to myself, a tired sound, the kind you make when you don't want to admit you're getting nervous over nothing. To distract myself, I wandered toward the CCTV monitor mounted near the stairwell. It showed 4 camera feeds at once: platform, ticket hall, entrance, and the maintenance corridor. Every feed was empty. I stood there longer than I meant to, watching the screens. That was when the footsteps started again. They were clearly on the platform now. I turned around fast. Nothing. I checked the monitors again. Still empty. My chest felt tight in a way that didn't quite make sense. I wasn't panicking, but my body was reacting like something wasn't lining up. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded wrong in the open space, smaller than I expected. No answer. The footsteps stopped. I stood there staring down the platform, trying to decide whether to call campus security or just sit back down and ignore it. That was when I heard the pacing, not walking past anymore, just back and forth, slow, measured, like someone was thinking. I backed up toward the monitors without taking my eyes off the platform. The pacing continued. I looked at the screens again. Empty. Every angle showed nothing. I felt stupid standing there, heart beating too fast over sounds that didn't even have a source. I told myself I was exhausted. My brain was filling in gaps. I decided to sit near the monitors, where I could see everything at once. The pacing moved closer. I could tell because the sound changed, sharper, more direct, shoes hitting concrete instead of echoing through space. I didn't look away from the screens this time. The footsteps stopped directly behind me. I waited. Nothing touched me. Nothing spoke. I turned slowly. The platform behind me was empty. I checked the cameras again, my hands shaking now. Still nothing. That was when one of the monitors flickered. Just for a second. When it came back, the platform feed showed something new. A shadow. Not a person, not clearly, just a shape where I was sitting. But I was standing. I stepped sideways, testing it. The shadow stayed where it was. 3 seconds later, it moved. Not smoothly, like it was catching up. I felt my mouth dry. My thoughts were racing, trying to come up with explanations that didn't feel convincing even as I thought them. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "Okay." I backed up from the monitors and headed toward the ticket gates, deciding I'd rather deal with locked doors than stay on that platform. Halfway there, I heard footsteps again, right behind me, matching my pace. I stopped. They stopped. I took one step forward. A step followed. I turned around. Nothing. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just kept walking, faster now, toward the exit. The footsteps stayed 3 steps behind me the whole way. When I reached the gates, they cut off. I looked back. The platform was empty. I waited by the locked doors until morning. When staff arrived, I tried to explain what happened. They listened politely, in that way people do when they've already decided what they think. One of them checked the CCTV footage from the night. He said there was no movement at all. I asked about sound issues, echoes, anything. He shrugged. As I was leaving, he added something quietly.
Most nights, someone misses the last train. You're not the first. I asked if anyone ever stayed overnight like that. He nodded. Sometimes. Does this happen to them too? He hesitated. Not usually, he said. Only when the station's empty. I don't miss the last train anymore, even if it means leaving early, even if it costs more.
I didn't expect anything strange to happen that night. That's probably the most important part. It was late, past 11, and the station had thinned out the way it always does when the last trains are coming through. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, just tired. People slouched against pillars, phones glowing in their hands, jackets half-zipped because everyone underestimated how cold it would get once the sun disappeared. I was waiting for the final train home, same one I'd taken dozens of times before, same platform, same routine. I worked late shifts at a printing warehouse, and this was just part of my life now. Clock out, catch the last train, stare out the window until my stop blurred into existence. The station itself was old, not abandoned, just worn down in a way that felt permanent. Yellowed tiles, metal benches that always felt colder than the air around them, fluorescent lights that buzzed softly overhead, like insects trapped behind glass. I remembered checking the departure board, mostly out of habit. That's when I saw it. For just a second, maybe less, the board flickered. One of those small glitches you barely notice unless you're already looking right at it. But instead of scrambling letters or a delayed time, a new line appeared. Platform 13. No destination, no arrival time, just the number. Then it vanished. The board refreshed and everything went back to normal. I stood there longer than I meant to, staring up at it like I'd imagined the whole thing. I even checked my phone, half expecting to see some notification or reflection that explained it away. Nothing. There was no platform 13. This station only had 12. Always had. I walked over to the customer service desk near the center of the station. The attendant was an older guy, balding, glasses sliding down his nose, scrolling through something on his screen like he was counting down the minutes until he could go home. "Hey, quick question," I said, trying to sound casual. "Yeah?" He looked up, polite but clearly exhausted. "Yeah? Is there a platform 13 here?" He didn't answer right away, just blinked at me. "No," he said, flat, certain. "I thought I saw it flash on the board." He shook his head immediately. "The board's been acting up all week, but there's no 13, never has been." "Then what does it jump from? 12 to—" "Nothing," he cut in. Not rude, but decisive. 12 is the end. That was it. No explanation, no curiosity, just a dismissal delivered with the ease of something he'd said before. I thanked him and walked back toward the platforms, telling myself it was just a glitch, a tired brain filling in gaps. That happens more than people admit. Still, I checked the board again. Nothing. The last train was delayed, 30 minutes, then 45. People groaned softly, shifted their weight. Some left the station entirely. By midnight, there were maybe 8 of us left spread across the platforms. The lights dimmed slightly. Night mode, I guess. That's when I noticed something else. The sign pointing to the platforms, those big hanging boards with arrows, had an arrow I'd never noticed before. It wasn't lit, just painted, faded, like it had been there longer than the rest. The arrow pointed past platform 12. I walked past platform 12. The air changed almost immediately. Not colder, just heavier, like the space beyond that point carried a pressure I hadn't noticed before. The lighting dropped off, leaving long shadows between columns. The sound shifted too. My footsteps didn't return to me the same way. There was no sign saying Platform 13, just an empty stretch of track and a platform that looked finished, maintained, clean, not abandoned, no caution tape, no barriers, just waiting. I stood there longer than I should have. Then the lights above it flickered on. A low hum rolled through the station, steady and deliberate. Not loud, more something you felt through your feet than heard. The rails began to tremble beneath my boots. A train was coming, but not from either direction I recognized. It emerged slowly, headlights dim, like it didn't need them. The sound it made wasn't the sharp grind I was used to. It moved with an unsettling smoothness, like it knew exactly where it was going. It came to a stop right in front of me. The doors were already open. No announcement, no conductor visible, no interior lights, just darkness beyond the threshold. I looked back toward the rest of the station. Every other platform was empty now. I didn't think much of it first. I'd had a long, stressful day at work, and all I wanted was to get home. People leave without noticing all the time. I figured I'd just lost track. I stepped closer to the train without fully deciding to. The smell reached me first. Stale air, old fabric, something faintly sweet underneath, like dust sealed away too long. Inside, the seats were filled. People sat perfectly still, not asleep, not slouched, just upright, facing forward, hands folded in their laps, eyes open. None of them blinked. I cleared my throat. "Is this the last train?" No response. I stepped onto the train. The doors slid shut behind me with a soft click. The interior lights came on slowly, revealing faces that felt off in ways I couldn't quite place. Too pale, too smooth, expressions caught somewhere between neutral and expectant. One seat near the door was empty. I sat down. The train began to move. Outside the windows, the station disappeared almost immediately, replaced by darkness that didn't resemble a tunnel. It felt open, vast, like the absence of anything at all. I checked my phone. No signal, no time. The screen stayed black longer than it should have before finally lighting up, showing a date that didn't make sense, months ahead. A woman across from me turned her head. "You weren't scheduled," she said. Her voice was calm, polite, like she was stating a fact, not questioning me. "I just want to go home," I said. She nodded slowly. "That's what everyone says." That's when I noticed none of them had bags, no phones, no coats, just themselves. The train slowed. Lights flickered. The doors opened. I stepped out without thinking, my chest tight, heart beating hard enough that it felt unsteady. I was back on platform 12. The station lights buzzed overhead, normal, loud, alive. My train was pulling in on the correct platform, doors opening, conductor calling out stops. I turned around. There was no platform 13, no extra track, no arrow, no space where it had been. I got on my train and went home. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the station map online. Platforms 1 through 12. Nothing else. I was working a temporary overnight position with the city's transit department. Nothing fancy. I wasn't a conductor or a driver. I handled late arrivals, assisted stranded passengers, and stayed on site until the last scheduled train cleared the station. That night, the final long-distance train was already 3 hours late. It was supposed to arrive just after midnight. By 3:10 a.m., the platform was almost empty. A few people had given up and left. Others sat slouched on benches, phones dimmed low, eyes half closed. Everyone looked worn down in the same quiet way. No one was angry anymore, just tired. Dispatch kept updating us with the same message. Train is en route, mechanical delay resolved. I had heard that line before. It usually meant, don't ask questions. At 3:37 a.m., the arrival board finally updated. Track 6, now arriving. People stood up slowly, like they didn't quite believe it yet. I walked down toward the end of the platform, clipboard in hand, ready to help with unloading. The station speakers clicked on, announced the arrival in that flat, neutral voice that made every message sound the same. The rails started to hum. That low vibration came first, traveling through the concrete under my feet. Then the distant shape of the train appeared, headlights cutting through the darkness beyond the platform. It rolled in slower than usual. Too slow. The brakes hissed as it came to a stop, each car lining up perfectly along the platform. The doors stayed shut. People waited. A few seconds passed, then more. Someone muttered something about broken doors. I radioed dispatch to confirm clearance to assist. No response. I stepped closer to the first car and peered through the window. The lights were on inside. Every seat was empty. Not just unoccupied, neatly empty. No bags, no jackets, no trash. The kind of clean you don't see on a train that's been running all night. I walked along the platform, checking each car as I went. Same thing. Lights on, seats empty. The windows reflected my own face back at me, pale and confused looking. Behind me, someone laughed nervously. "Did they all get off somewhere else?" a man asked. Before I could answer, the conductor's door opened. He stepped down onto the platform alone. He was older, maybe late 50s, uniform pressed, hat set straight. He didn't look tired, which struck me as strange given the delay. He didn't look at the passengers. Instead, he walked straight to the control panel beside the first car and began closing the doors. From the outside. I stepped forward. "Hey, sir, we still have passengers waiting." He paused, hand still on the panel. Without turning, he said, "This train is not boarding." His voice was calm, not irritated, not rushed, just final. "Where are the passengers?" I asked. He turned then. His eyes flicked over the platform, scanning the waiting people like they were background noise. "There were passengers," he said. "There aren't any more." That didn't answer anything, and he knew it. I radioed dispatch again. Still nothing. One of the waiting passengers started to raise their voice, asking what was going on, demanding refunds, explanations. The conductor didn't react. He finished locking the doors, checking each one by hand. Click, pull, click, pull. Methodical. When he reached the last car, he stopped before me. "Emergency services are on their way," he said quietly. "You should move everyone back from the platform edge." "Why?" I asked. He considered that just for a second. "Because the doors aren't meant to open again." That was when I noticed something off about the train. Not inside, underneath. Dark streaks ran along the lower edge of the cars, like something had been dragged against them for miles. I hadn't seen it first because the platform lights didn't quite reach that low. The conductor followed my gaze. He adjusted his gloves. "They held on longer than usual," he said, more to himself than to me. I didn't ask who. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. The conductor stepped away from the train and stood beside me, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look at the train anymore. I did. I noticed scuff marks on the doors, not from luggage, longer, uneven, concentrated around the seams. Something about the way they angled made my skin prickle. One of the passengers leaned close to the window and cupped his hands around his eyes to look inside. He jumped back immediately. "There's writing on the glass," he said.
I moved closer. From the inside, smeared across the glass, were fingerprints. Too many, layered over each other, streaked downward like hands had slid as the train moved. And beneath them, faint lines carved in the glass. I couldn't read the words clearly, but I knew what desperation looked like. Emergency services arrived fast after that. Police first, then fire. They asked me questions, lots of them. The conductor answered none. When an officer tried to open one of the doors, the conductor placed a hand on his arm. "Don't," he said. The officer hesitated, then stepped back. They took the conductor aside eventually. I watched them talk near the far end of the platform. The conductor gestured once back toward the tracks, then shook his head. They never opened the doors. The train was towed out just before sunrise. No announcement, no explanation. The platform reopened later that morning like nothing had happened. Officially, the report said the train had suffered a systems failure and arrived empty due to an earlier evacuation. No mention of delays, no mention of fingerprints, no mention of why the conductor locked the doors from the outside. I didn't go back to that job after my contract ended. Months later, I ran into someone who worked dispatch that night. I asked him why no one answered the radio. He looked uncomfortable. "We were told not to," he said, once it crossed the county line. "Why?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "Because that train stopped answering signals an hour before it arrived."